Hiya guys, Freddy here. Welcome back to another Retro RPG. The end of another week, the end of another poll. We've got a very clear win for Galaxy Guide 2, Yavin and Bespin for the Star Wars role-playing game. Now as usual, I'll cover that on the desktop in a wee second, and I'll be back at the end of the video with some other channel-related stuff and some other poll-related stuff. But before I do that, I'd like to take a moment to talk about my Patreons, who this week I have been informed the force is with always, which is only right because these people are absolutely great and make all of this possible by helping support the channel. Now if you'd like to join them, and I sure wish you would, and help support the channel, or if you'd like to gain access to these videos a week early, or you'd like to gain access to one of the other levels of patronage we've got, then there's a Patreon in the description down below. If you check it out, it'd be very much appreciated. But anyway, let's have a look at Galaxy Guide 2. So, this is the Star Wars Galaxy Guide 2 Yavin and Bespin, which came out from West End Games, and this version came out in 1995, because this is the revised and expanded for the Star Wars role-playing game 2nd edition version. So we've got a few extra pages in here. Now I do have the 1st edition one standing around somewhere, but because it's a stapled booklet, whereas this one has a spine which I could actually read, this was the one which popped out to me, which I saw and entered into the poll last week. Now, the Galaxy Guides were glimpses into sections of the Star Wars universe, as diverse as covering tramp freighters, as covering bounty hunting, but also covering locations from time to time. So this one's covering Yavin from A New Hope and Bespin from The Empire Strikes Back. And it is very much a book of two halves. The quality of the way it deals with each of these is very, very different. Not saying one's better than the other, but one is definitely more imaginative than the other. Anyway, let's have a look at the back cover. So, Galaxy Guide 2, Yavin and Bespin. The galactic civil war between the Empire and the Rebel Alliance has moved on from the isolated Yavin system, but adventure, new civilizations and great danger can still be found around the gas giant and its moons. Find out why the Empire has quietly established a new base near the ruins of the first Death Star, and brave the mighty storms of mighty Yavin itself in search of untold wealth. Slog through the icy tunnels of Yavin 8 in search of downed Imperial spy, or cut through the thick tangle of Yavin 4's jungles to explore the ancient Massassi temples which tower over the forest canopy. Cloud City is a booming trade town located in a little-travelled pocket of space just off the Corellian trade spine. The Imperial annexation of the city is still 2 years away, and life is still fast and good for the traders, tourists, business executives, gamblers, and rogues who call Bespin home. Sample the decadent delights of Cloud City's pleasure palaces, or cut shady deals in the dark, gritty world of Port Town. Gamble away all your belongings, or, if you're good enough, you just might win rulership of the city for life. Move beyond Cloud City to brave the dreaded sky sharks that haunt the wilds of Bespin skies, or discover the secret of the planet Mizar. Yavin and Bespin are two of the most important systems in the Star Wars movie trilogy. This comprehensive volume details the creatures, aliens, cultures, and geography of both planets. Galaxy Guide 2 Yavin and Bespin provides newly disclosed data that will fascinate movie fans and Star Wars game players alike. I don't know about that, and obviously all of this is very dated, because we have long since moved past the expanded universe. So lots of this information is now written off. But there's a wealth of information in here. So the publishing quality is fantastic. We've got some photographs and concept art throughout, but also lots of stuff provided by West End Games themselves, a style I really liked. So we've got an introduction, basically talking about what the back cover talks about, that is introducing us to these two systems. And we start off with the Yavin system. And it goes through and it talks about different planets within the system. So we've got Fidanil, Stroiketsi. I have no idea if I'm pronouncing these right. But we will go further. And we've got a diagram of the Yavin system. So we've got Yavin with its moons, including Yavin 4 from the original Star Wars movie, 13 and 8, which are more important ones, plus a scattering of other ones. Another planets within the system, Fidanil, and Stroiketsi, which seems to be a large comet or extrasolar system body which has got caught in the orbit of the star. And we go in, and we've got basic information about them, and then more detailed information. And we've got things on the life forms of Yavin. Obviously, Yavin itself is a large gas giant, and we've got non-predatory floaters, floater sharks and floater squids living within the gas atmosphere. So there's life within the gas giant, things to happen, especially given what comes later. And then we've got a section moving on to Yavin's moons. So we've got Yavin 4 with the Massassi temples. It talks about the vanished race of Massassi. Now, these were kind of dealt with further in the expanded universe, where the Massassi became the servants of the Sith Empire, which established and built the temples there. And this obviously knows none of that, but doesn't really contradict it. It just makes out that nobody knows. We've got a map of the Massassi type, the rebel base, and some diagrams of the temple that the rebels used itself. Now, while this is serviceable, I don't really like these maps. We've got these sections just numbered. So we've got section 5 here, which is barracks and recreation facilities. Well, what's in there? It's just a fifth of this square sectioned off and labelled for that. We've got a turbo lift in the middle. I would have much preferred to have slightly detailed sections where you could see, so if you're running an adventure, you could know which corridors people were running down and that kind of thing. But I suppose it's serviceable enough. Continuing through, we've got different plants on Yavin 4. So the Massassi tree, making Massassi tea out of the leaves of it. Climbing ferns, nebula orchids, grenade fungi. And then we're on to animals, which you can meet. The crawfish, a swamp crustacean. Yavin runyip. Woolamanders and stint taril, tree-dwelling omnivorous nocturnal rodents. So different creatures you might encounter on the planet. And then we start going into where we've created new stuff, or where West End Games has created new stuff. So we've got Yavin 8, totally different moon. It's a equatorial diameter, period of rotation, nothing remarkable about the air, it's breathable by humanoids, and it has an intelligent species living on it, which are the Melodies, who are amphibious humanoid species. And they really haven't been detected by anybody yet, because their settlements are within the water, so not really easily spottable from orbit. But we've got creatures on the planet, herbivore burrowers, lopers, moss hoppers, wraiths, grazers. So it's a well flashed out planet with lots of creatures on it, which is especially interesting given the adventures they provide. So you could end up running around this planet on an encounter in the system. We've got Yavin 13, which is a desert moon, but there's 2 intelligent species on it, the slith and the gerbs. And we get Gerber burrows here. Lots of information about the species. There are tribute dice if you wanted to be one. Gerbs have acute hearing, claws, a powerful kick. We've got different creatures on the planet, and it details out. I say planet, what I mean is moon. And we've got inhabitants of the system, people who have come here. So the Karuska fishermen of Yavin, people who fish down into the gas giants, looking for Karuska stones, valuable stones, Dameron fishing stations. The Dameron Corporation. And we've got details of their fishing station, 100 credits a day to dock, unless you work for the company, when it's free. It's got docking areas, land directional beacons. We've got more information about that, what it's like to fish the gas giant for these stones. Company report. And then we've got the Imperial Salvage Station, because this is set after the movie. So the Death Star has been destroyed within the Yavin system, and its wreckage is there. So the Empire has set up this salvage station to process the salvage, because there's a lot of valuable material within the Death Star itself, but also to study what's happened exactly. And that's quite an interesting setup, that the players could be sent here to find out information, what the Empire has discovered about the destruction of Death Star. And we've got details about the salvage operation here. And we've got some adventure outlines. SOS Plague. Is there a doctor in the system? Can you find a cure? House calls. Karuska Caper, where you're going after Karuska stones. Operation Recovery. You're trying to find a probe which has crashed into one of the planets. A stone heist, diving for gems, hide and seek. Then we've got some NPCs involved in the system, so different people who work there. And then we're on to the Bespin system. So we've covered Yavin, and we're providing a lot of speculative information. We're fleshing out the universe a lot, because it's set after the movies. But this is set before the movie, so there's not a lot here which isn't in the movie. It mentions that the planet is Mysa, and we get the brief look at it. There's a map here showing the orbits of the different planets, Bespin and its moons. But there's not a lot of information about Mysa, Orin, Velsa's ring, Bespin's moons. Get just a couple of paragraphs. Bespin itself we get a lot more information on. You know, the different levels of it, with the core, the cloud layer on top. We've got different life forms which live within Bespin's atmosphere. So Beldans, Velkas, a primary hunter, a flying predator. And then we're on to Cloud City, so we've got lots of information, you know, what restaurants, nightclubs and dance halls, high stakes, the Royal Casino, including a diagram of the layout of it, sports arenas, holiday towers, para-wing gliders, skyships. Then we're on to the inner city of it, so the real Cloud City, customs, different commodities brokers, including Bespin Motors, who make the cloud cars, the Tundra clan, different services, starport repair bays, merchants guilds, Corellian Merchants Guild House, the underworld, so we've got Port Town, different smugglers, infochants and code dealers of vessels and borgs. Then we're on to the government of Cloud City, the administrator detailing out who it was before Lando Calrissian, the Parliament of Guilds, what different factions exist, the Ugnaughts, who operate the city itself but don't really have much control. We've got different information on the architecture of Cloud City, how it's floating, the wind tunnel in the middle, the large section where Vader and Luke have their lightsaber fight. A diagram of the different levels, because obviously Cloud City is absolutely massive. Showing how it stays up, tractor beams and repulsor beams being channeled down and gathering up the gas, the Tabana gas industry. And then we've got some adventure outlines, lost and found, repair funds, you know, dealing with people to get your ship repaired, Mysa's treasure. And then we're on to some NPCs. So we've got a crime lord, we've got the stats for Lobot here, Twilight criminals, Gamorrean bodyguards, a retired 6-6, Ugnaught, I believe he's the leader, a member of the Botrut tribe and grew up on Cloud City, never found a niche in Ugnaught culture. Inca, another Ugnaught, a Bespin meteorologist, and initiative anthropologist. Obviously both crop up. We've got an advert for the Darkstrider campaign, coming out in July 1995, and an advert for the World of Necroscope. So that is Galaxy Guide to Yavin and Bespin. The section on Yavin I absolutely adore. I think it's fantastic. It gives you a star system you can do so much with. You know, you can mention something that people will recognize from the movies without having to go into the Massassi temples, going into the same places, and just making your Star Wars game so restrictive that you're just revisiting the same places over and over. We've got different moons, we've got different things happening, and the storyline's progressing beyond the movies. Whereas the Bespin section is really limited. It's detailing background information on the movie, and not much more. While it says it's the Bespin system, all the other planets just get about a page between them. There's not a lot of information on the other planets, and definitely not enough for you to flesh them out and use them. As I said, it's a book of 2 parts. I can't see mention of the different parts being written by different people. But the first part is so imaginative, and the second part is so restrictive. So, while I love this book, it also slightly annoys me. So that was Galaxy Guide 2, and that won this week with some 35% of the vote. Way ahead of everything else. Everything else tends to be clustered quite close together, because in second place on 22% was the US Army Vehicle Guide for Twilight 2000. In third place was Dimension Book 4 Scrapers for Rifts on 16%. In fourth position on 14% was the Alternity Campaign Kit for, funnily enough, Alternity. And in fifth position on only 13% was Field Report Extrasolar Colonies for Aeon Trinity. All of which I'd love to have covered, but Star Wars is kind of my thing. I've been running it for 20 years. I've been running a website about it for over that as well. Great game, and that was a wonderful book to look through. A real joy to bring it to you. Now, as usual, they're all wiped out of the poll, and we're going back to a Retro Adventures poll. So, first up in that, we've got Last Rites for Call of Cthulhu. Now, this is another Cthulhu Modern compilation of adventures. For some reason, while the older eras of Cthulhu tended to bring you one long adventure where you'd be taking a journey and you'd be having different adventures along the way, so it was a campaign. Modern day Cthulhu tended to bring books of single adventures which weren't really connected together. And this is another one of those. Some great stuff in these, and I'd love to bring it to you. Next up, we've got Something Rotten in Kislev, Part 4 of the Enemy Within campaign for Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay. Absolutely classic campaign. And we've had the first 3 parts, so it only makes sense for the 4th part to be in the poll. We will see if you're interested in seeing how that goes. Now, this is the last physical one I've got, because I didn't actually buy Empire in Flames or Empire in Chaos, the 2 different versions of the final part of the campaign. I don't own those. So this will be the last physical book I do, and if we move on to the final part, it'll be a PDF review. Next up, we've got Your Own Private Idaho for Price of Freedom. Now, I absolutely adore Price of Freedom. Absolutely hilarious role-playing game. Red Dawn, the role-playing game. America's been invaded by the commies and you've got to fight them off. And not a lot was published for it. It was kind of badly thought of at the time, being a bit right-wing. Even though it's not, it's very much tongue-in-cheek. I bought myself Price of Freedom and absolutely love having it. I brought it as my reward for getting to 2,000 subscribers. Be a joy to bring you one of the adventures which came out for it and see how they handled it. Next up, another post-apocalyptic American one. We've got City of Angels for Twilight 2000. Now, Twilight 2000 we've covered a lot, some great open world adventures where the players just tend to get dumped in an area and there's lots to discover as well as their mission to complete. Be interesting to see if City of Angels is another one of these fantastic adventures. And finally, we've got Nightwalker the Villy Affair for Millennium's End. Now, I don't expect this to do well. I keep putting it in because Millennium's End, I think, is an absolutely fantastic role-playing game brought to us by Charles Ryan, who has gone on to many more amazing games throughout his career. But Millennium's End is kind of where it started, and so many good ideas in this game. And so well presented. I'd love to present these adventures, but I'm guessing probably not this because everybody's kind of forgotten about it. What else has been going on? Well, I've been publishing stuff through DrivethruRPG. I've been doing post-apocalyptic character classes for 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons, converting it over into a post-apocalyptic setting through the classes, through some monsters, but I've had a request to do Victorian character classes next. And I've been having a think about that, and I've come up with a few. I'll be fleshing those out over the next week. And as we move on, I'll be doing some monsters, but I don't want to do Lovecraftian monsters. I want to do ones which fit into a Victorian setting of Jack the Ripper, Spring-Heeled Jack, Hound of the Baskervilles, those kind of creatures, things lurking in the mist out to get you, which aren't extra-dimensional beasties, they're just horrors which aren't seen. So, I've got a few ideas, we'll see how that goes, and I'll be releasing those through DrivethruRPG, and of course, on the shared Google Drive to patrons of Laird and Librarian status. So if you want to gain access to them that way, there'll be a link to the DrivethruRPG down below, but there'll also be a link to my Patreon where you can become a patron of those levels. Over on RPGgamer.org, well, continuing with the last few episodes of Young Jedi Adventures, it's been a fun run through, even if it's starting to become a bit samey. They've done 50 episodes, it's perhaps, or 50 stories rather, it's been perhaps too much for a first season. But it's quite a fun series for the little kids, and I'm a little kid at heart. Also, I've been covering the first few episodes of The Bad Batch as they're being released. I'm not doing stats for those yet, but I am covering the Young Jedi Adventures ones and statting stuff out. So if you're interested in the Star Wars D6 system, which I imagine you probably are if you watch this video, then check us out over on RPGgamer.org, where we're doing stuff, and I appreciate any comments that you put on there, because I do take a guidance on board for what's important. But anyway, as usual, I've been wittering on for way too long, so thank you very much for watching. As always, most of all, you look after yourselves, and I'll catch you later. Bye now.